Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea Break Film Reviews, where we drink tea and talk about films. My name's Michelle, and I'm here with fellow film buff Victoria, and today we are going to discuss Women Talking, directed by Sarah Polley and nominated for 2 Academy Awards this year, including Best Picture. Based on true events that happened at an ultra conservative Mennonite community in Bolivia, this film explores human resilience in the face of brutality and how conversations can help overcome trauma. So, with that heavy description in mind, I think it's important to ask, how did this film make you feel?
Um, ooh, I I felt a lot of things.
Me
Slightly
too.
uncomfortable,
Yep.
pretty intense. Uh, I was egging them on to be more of a dick to the dude that was part of the group, but that was just me, honestly. I This movie is very engaging for what it is, I would say. Seeing as how you don't have a ton of random shots and going everywhere, you're just stuck with this group. I think it's uh I think it's hard hitting and engaging.
Yes, I agree. I cried. I will admit. I was in the cinema and the ending made me cry because it
Yeah.
was it was so hopeful. I'm kind of used to these stories about women overcoming things to end pretty badly, and I don't know whether that's just a negative, a sort of I expect the worst situation, and this was a pleasant surprise that they actually seemed to be leaving. But that certainly made me very emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, that last scene was beautiful.
Hmm. And certainly because
Absolutely.
it is engaging for what it is, which is quite literally women talking.
Absolutely.
I can't fault them on the name. That's what happened. That's what we
Yeah.
got.
Yeah.
And they talked in a way that was very thought provoking
Absolutely.
about things that are very difficult to talk about. It is worth saying this will not be for everyone. It's
Absolutely
pretty
not.
traumatic. A lot of horrible things are discussed or, hinted at, assumed, all
Yeah.
sorts of all
Well,
sorts
straight
of
up
horrible
said
things. Yes, all
too.
straight up
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. Uh, So watch out.
Watch out, yeah.
SA, trigger warning.
It's not an
Uh,
easy film. It's not.
yep, not an easy film at all. Though it is a very good conversation starter, I feel like. A lot of the time for movies that have SA as part of the plot,
Hmm.
I stay away from completely because I'm just tired of that script where like,
Hmm.
oh, it makes her stronger or ba 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 ba, you know?
Yes.
And it's gotten really, especially in the horror genre, is oversaturated with that storyline, or
Hmm.
where they just throw it into the plot to make it a worse situation. It feels like it's like they're just using it for the plot rather than actually being part of the story. Like this had to have
Yeah.
happened as part of the story.
Sometimes to make
So
it more, sometimes they throw it in to make it more provocative, maybe, or to sell it as
yeah,
something that it's not.
yeah, yeah. So in but this movie is completely different,
Hmm.
seeing as how this is a legitimate conversation starter, I think, this whole movie, if you can
Yes.
sit through all of it. But
Yes.
it's a wonderful conversation starter in my opinion.
It is worth mentioning that although it is based on real life events, it's not necessarily about the context of where these women are. It's definitely more about the conversations they are having and the way in which they are discussing the trauma that has happened as the three generations that are in the room. It's a lot more
Hmm.
to do with how they process the information as opposed to it being about their religion and their circumstances, which, as I said at the start of the film, it's meant to be based on a Mennonite community, but there are a few issues with that in terms of how the film presents it, as if it is ultra conservative, as the 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 community it was inspired by was, then, for example, August would not be allowed back after his family was excommunicated. And Nettie would 100% be excommunicated for being trans. So they did allow themselves a few pockets of, I don't know how to call it. How would you describe that? It's details that don't necessarily fit the community they're showing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they never explicitly mention who they are in the film. Equally, I
Yeah.
would say that it's difficult to imagine that if none of these women were ever educated, how they could possibly be this eloquent with their
Truly.
discussions.
Truly.
There is
Like,
that.
even when I'm trying to be well spoken and eloquent, I come off sounding real bad.
I mean,
And
we understand from just doing this. It's very
they
difficult.
sailed off into the sunset. They did wonderfully.
Absolutely. Even
I'm
the
not jealous at
kids.
all.
Yes. Even the kids are so well spoken, and even sometimes if they don't have the words to say something, there's quite a good deal of silence in this that speaks volumes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very well scripted, and
Nettie's wonderful at communicating, even though they don't
yeah, it,
talk.
it is a good example of screenwriting that is very to the point,
Yeah,
and I liked the way that their three options of doing nothing, staying, and leaving get discussed in a very organized way.
yeah.
Interrupted, by having tea and going to get the kids and all sorts of things. It was just very well constructed as this debate that they're having.
They even had a pros and cons list. It was
Yes,
wonderful.
within the space of 24 hours. And I think that's what makes it extra engaging is because they don't faff around. It's not like months and weeks.
Hmm.
Yes, the essay has been going on for years and generations and decades, but the actual conversation they are having is restricted in a way that makes it palatable for an audience, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so as well. Uh, though, yeah, I would love to reiterate again that it's there are a lot of triggers in this movie.
Mhm,
Like every time I think about more of the movie, I just remember a scene,
mhm.
and the scene of the woman in the bed bleeding really struck me. I think it was a really striking scene.
Yes. They frequently show those glimpses of them just waking up, and
Yeah,
it was very disconcerting.
yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
there is something to be said about watching this as a woman, as identifying as a woman, and the idea of not being safe when you're sleeping is absolutely
Right?
terrifying. And
It's
I think that
horrifying.
certainly adds a layer to it from our perspective and from people watching who would have that, I guess, yeah, that perspective. But I will say that it didn't just dismiss the men entirely. There's a couple of very poignant moments. One in particular where they're showing the boys at school, and they have these shots where, accompanied by the voiceover, they have these shots where these young boys are just staring at the camera directly, right? They're breaking the fourth wall and they're staring directly into the
Hmm.
lens. And the voiceover discusses how they learn the behavior. And I think,
Yeah.
despite it being, of course, a very important film to discuss historically female trauma, I think it does well to balance it with not simply saying all men.
Yeah.
They make a real point in distinguishing how behavior is learned,
Hmm.
making the
Yeah.
conversation even more powerful. That moment when they were looking straight at me, it was unnerving, to say the least. That
Yeah, absolutely.
to have these children, and obviously that the filmmakers are trying to make us consider what kind of people they're going to turn out to be, and that
Yeah.
that in itself is terrifying.
And then when they're having that discussion to leave,
Hmm.
when they're trying to discuss, oh, what age is too old to come with us, because at what point are they a danger to us at
Yeah,
that, like, and it's that really struck me when they were talking about what age you have to
yeah,
stop trusting someone, pretty much.
yeah. I agree. I think up to that point, August was a bit of a throwaway character. He had a purpose.
Hmm.
He was lovely, fine, but um, it was really that moment when he gives that speech. And I love the fact that then one of the women says, it was a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Because that's a nice, like, she's vocalizing some of the things the audience might be thinking.
Yeah,
But it
absolutely.
justifies the speech a little more. It adds a bit of comedy to what is otherwise very not, absolutely not funny at all. But he made the point very eloquently, and it's nice coming from a teacher's perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene struck me as well.
Yeah. uh
It's interesting in the real life events, the women's experience was initially dismissed as wild female imagination.
oh, female hysteria.
Yeah, the old hysteria. Um,
Yeah.
and the film
Ooh.
uses that term during the opening, where I search the words so I make sure to get them right, and it says, "What follows is an act of female imagination." And I see how cleverly they utilized the phrase, but I do agree. I think this it connects well to not taking it as a particular analysis on one religious community, but seeing it more about the conversations in terms of
Absolutely. Yeah.
it.
It just felt like it was just one conversation, and that was really nice.
Mhm. But it is an act of female imagination because, um, like Una says, it's she can dream. All she has is the dreams. So,
Yeah.
although I imagine people in this situation never had the education, wouldn't be this eloquent, I can forgive it. And that line really introduces the film in terms of looking at it as a story. Don't forget, this is made up, but
Yeah.
it's based on real. It is important to know it is based on real life, but
Yeah.
it's more of a, I don't know, it's a culmination. There's very little reason all of these people, all of these generations would be talking so frankly in real life,
Yeah.
that felt like um, you know, and some a dream, right? It's
Right?
how
To have an
often
open forum with all of the generations,
yeah,
that would be wonderful. If
if
only
only,
people
yeah.
could get that
It's
together.
it's rare, especially I think we get a lot of elders in films. We get a lot of stubborn grandparents, but it's not
Hmm.
often we get kids weighing in on the situation. Those two,
Yeah.
I really love their characters. They provided a bit of comic relief with tying their braids together.
Yeah, I totally would forget that we tied our hair together.
Yeah.
That would be horrible. Do not like. Ugh. I mean, I don't remember having long hair, but God,
And when
that's
they
a
were drawing
horrifying thought.
pictures and, climbing the
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 ladder,
barn. Yeah.
yeah, into the hayloft. Yeah, I wrote down in my notes. Uh, kid trying to die on a ladder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that kid. Those two,
yeah,
I adored those two characters. They were so wonderful.
yeah.
And at the same time, they were the bravest, especially oh, their names are so difficult to pronounce, but the the one whose mother was uh beaten up at the end.
Hmm. Yeah,
One
yeah,
of them when the other women are discussing it and she says and they question whether what they saw was real or they question whether the men were innocent. And this girl
yeah,
says, "But we saw them." And that just hits super
yeah,
hard because
yeah. It does.
it goes back into trying to make sense of a situation that's so horrible. And the voice of reason is actually the kid, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it very often is,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time, children's stories just get pushed to the wayside.
Yeah.
It seems.
So it's nice to have them included.
Yeah. Uh, it was the quote, "I'll become a murderer if I stay."
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, ooh, you could feel the vitriol in it.
Yeah. And then when Una says one of the elders says that you're not a murderer and she says not yet. Like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, because people will be
yeah,
pushed to stuff like that and they
yeah,
discussed, oh my god, just I still can't believe how eloquent these women are. Frankly, is they're so eloquent, but they did discuss all of the questions that I had were brought up. And I think it's
yeah,
difficult to do that. It's difficult
yeah,
to bring up everything in a natural way. And I think they did that perfectly with these characters.
yeah,
Something I do want to mention that I didn't enjoy was the color grading. Very specifically, because I found it very boring. And I don't know
yeah.
why.
It was pretty dark. What they did blue? Wasn't it blue?
They just did
Wasn't it
so
like a blue?
a desaturated gray, blue,
Yeah,
brown situation.
yeah,
And apparently, the director specifically wanted this because she wanted to evoke a world that had faded in the past. Which is interesting on multiple levels, because I understand physically representing a community that isn't as relevant as it was, uh, relevant today as it was 100 years ago. Yeah, I get that
mhm,
aspect of it. But also, the, the things that these women are discussing are still very much relevant to specific people nowadays. It's not that these conversations are no longer important. So
yeah,
I found it quite taxing to have such difficult conversations also be accompanied by such dark and I don't know, like not unpleasing, but really
yeah,
uninteresting
yeah.
visuals.
Yeah, it was just kind of washed out visually.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that because I noticed that like right at the start of the movie, I was like, ooh, and then I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
uh, yeah, there is no change really. They just brightened it up slightly for the end and the happier shots. They didn't even change colors.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I agree.
I think it just might put people off. If I'm
Yeah.
if I'm trying to look at this as a difficult but a difficult film to watch, but also one that is worth watching, then I can imagine that some people might be put off because not only do they have to concentrate on what they are saying, but they also aren't given any relief through the visuals. And cinema is so visual that I find it difficult to justify sitting through this again, you know? Like I've heard
Yeah.
the conversations, but there's nothing to attract me to it this specifically as a film. I might as
Yeah.
well re-listen to this film.
Yeah. No, that film could have been a podcast.
Quite a strange podcast, but yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
Yeah.
I just thought it's worth noting because it was
Yeah.
a very conscious decision that was made there,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think
Can
it helped. I don't think it helped the film.
No, I don't. Well, like I understand wanting the theme and
Mm,
all of that, though it did it did seem a little washed out.
mm-hmm,
I think the conversation and the camera angles and everything was engaging.
mm-hmm. Yes,
I
I
watched
agree.
it with two other people, and yeah, and they said the same thing when I asked them about it.
Mm-hmm,
Because a lot of times when you watch movies like this, especially when other people are with you, what it was 2 hours and 30 minutes.
no, this one was cool 1
Three?
hour and 44 minutes.
Oh,
This
one hour
one
and
was
44
short.
minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, damn.
Short.
Yeah, okay. Ugh. Uh, uh, wow. Okay, and I got, sir, really? We made it. We made it far into it this time. It made 6.2 in the box office. So yeah, I'd say they went green.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's not the
and
kind of
that
film you just like. I went to the cinema to watch it, but it's not really the kind of film you just go to the cinema to watch. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's it has a very specific purpose. I think most people who will end up watching this will either connect with the themes or will probably watch it because of one of the actresses.
yeah. Cause ooh, what's her name?
So many great
Rooney
actresses.
Mara.
Yeah, Rooney
I think
Mara.
she's been in a lot of horror movies, hasn't she?
Yep. Claire
Yeah,
Foy, Jessica Buckley, and Frances McDormand as well.
yeah.
Certainly, that's
I
what's
love
going to
her.
attract people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So,
Uh,
what did the people you watch it with? What did they think?
uh, they said that was because I was more interested if uh the movie was more engaging or boring. Like I wanted to know if it was boring or engaging,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that was engaging and that they enjoyed it. I believe that it. I mean, it's a hard. They didn't really bring up more than that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think, or I don't remember. Sadly,
Still, it's
uh,
difficult to be engaging with so much conversation. So, you're absolutely
mm-hmm,
right. I think the cinematography was really intriguing. The way
mm-hmm,
they used the flashbacks, not in a very like they interweaved all those flashbacks super seamlessly. They didn't do
yeah,
the thing where like boom, it's a flashback now. They didn't do that.
yeah,
They did it more so as the voiceover was doing it, as as they were moving through the subject matter or a different person was speaking, we got these moments where we could see what had happened. But it was far less aggressively time jumping. It just felt like
yeah.
part of the conversation, and that worked really
Yeah,
well.
seamless.
Yeah.
It was seamless into flashbacks.
Hmm.
Can I mention "Nearer My God to Thee" was saying, and or "Nearer My God to Thee" was in
What?
this movie, that song, and I just
Oh,
have
the
to point it out
song.
every time that, yeah, I have to point it out every time that gets used. It's like part of the Titanic Club or something. I don't know.
Oh, what
I
song
like
is
signed a
that?
waiver. I'm pretty sure. "Nearer My God to Thee." It's the hymn that the band is playing.
Oh, okay.
in the Titanic. I should.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. No band in this movie that I
No,
know
no, but
of.
that would have been
Uh,
strange.
yeah. I wrote down poignant. I think that's a good word
Hmm.
for for this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, I put good pace. Overall good movie. Doesn't drag on.
Surprisingly good
Like,
pace.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because it doesn't feel like you're dragging your feet
No.
through the movie. Like a lot of movies, especially if they're based on conversations and they don't have that much sense in uh, different areas.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, because
and I said that it's a good statement and reality check, kind of.
yes.
Yeah,
Yep, I agree. Because the other approach to lengthy conversations in films, I would say, is something like The Big Short or something like that, or The Social Network.
yeah,
That's a lot of dialogue. And yes, a lot of it is quite interesting, but the approach for those two films was quite a fast paced, and it wasn't really about the the meaning behind the conversation. It wasn't about so much what the characters were saying, but more to do with saying everything they could. I don't know how to put it, but those films took a very different approach.
yeah. I mean, even if you compare this film to Tar,
Yep.
Tar's pacing was abhorrent.
Yes, we have big problems with Tar
Yeah,
because it.
yeah. Where this was very engaging, and it kept on pushing. It kept on
Yeah,
pushing you through at a steady pace.
yeah. I guess
Tar,
that's
not
the
so
point.
much.
The steady pace of it, with an interesting ebb and flow that was well managed, as opposed to
Yeah,
Tar, where it was moments of greatness interspersed sporadically, unpredictably, and it really wasn't keeping the momentum of the story.
yeah,
Whilst this
yeah,
kept it, this kept it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's not much to say really because it is really it is like I said at the start. It's exactly what it says on the poster.
Yep.
It's women talking, and
Very straightforward.
what they talk about is super important. And if you can handle the rather upsetting topics, then I would recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Which, nope, I would too. I
Okay,
think it's a really good conversation.
it is.
Absolutely, especially the way they presented it.
And you know, it wouldn't be so terrible to watch this film in a couple of parts if you can't handle it, you know. If it's a
Yeah,
bit too heavy,
yeah,
you can divide it. There are a few natural breaks in it where you could take a break if you
absolutely,
wanted
yeah.
to. If you were interested in the subject matter and trusted that you would come out having interesting thoughts about what they were talking about, then
Yeah.
you could easily divide the film. Don't need to take it
Or you
all at
could just
once.
listen to it,
You could just
honestly.
listen to it, yes.
It's a conversation.
As we said, it matters very little who these women are. Yes,
Mhm.
religion does play an important part to them,
Very
their faith,
little.
but you could replace their faith to God with having faith in general, whatever it may be. So it's
Mhm.
it's not that that conversation or those lines can't be applied to your individual experiences, I would say. It does well to not make it to not distance people who might not be religious, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Well, that was our conversation on women talking. We hope you enjoyed it.
Can I say one more thing? I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's just trying to keep the time. But sure, go ahead.
They they should have shit talked the man more. That's all.
I like that the character. Oh, what was her name? The character of Mariche. Yeah, that's the one. Oh, she constantly. She was just like, shut up, August, please. So nobody asked you, all
What are
right?
you even doing here?
Just write down the things we talked. I
Yeah.
did like her
Yeah.
her
Okay,
role in
sorry.
that.
Yeah. I just had to get that out.
It's okay. Okay, you can get it. You can get it off your chest. All right, so thank you for listening to us discuss women talking. Don't forget to follow us on whichever podcast platform you prefer, and we hope to see you or hear you or have you. We hope to have you with us next time. Which, for those who are here watching us, will be in 5 minutes when we will be discussing Triangle of Sadness. All right.
Ooh,
We'll be
ooh,
right
and that's a
back.
doozy.
Oh boy. Get yourselves ready.
God damn.